about what's the best way to get results, strength conditioning, CrossFit, or hybrid training. That was actually taken from a video that a gentleman did through WOD Science. I found it to be really, really interesting. It's like an, I don't know, 45-minute or so video where he broke down and he studied it. I want to talk about it. I think it's eye-opening, but also comes with some nuance, of course. We'll also, of course, dive into CrossFit's new marketing strategy. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Are they bringing back nostalgia? But that's what the plan is for today's show. We appreciate you guys checking it out. I think a great place to start is the WOD Science video. So when I was going through it, my biggest takeaway was that he was one of the first people I've seen who put out to a large audience asking who wants to participate in a study, and actually had these people complete a study where both groups did the same workouts, but one group did the workout in terms of what they called like a conventional CrossFit model, where it would be strength and then you're conditioning in a 1 hour class. That's they called that conventional. Then the other group was the hybrid group that broke up their training, same training, into two different segments, a part A and a part B. This was the first study that I've seen where he actually asked a larger audience, I think it was several hundred people, to split up. And the results I found to be pretty compelling. I wouldn't say that they were necessarily anything I wasn't expecting, but I think training age played a big role there. So to start off with, that's my, kind of like hot take that I'm excited to talk about this because of that. But Gabe, what's your kind of take on this? I know that you were the one who originally was like, hey, check this thing out. And I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, so definitely stay to the end for the hot take on the, F the quick fix. I'm super fired up to talk about that and what CrossFit's going on. So stay till the end for that. But yeah, man, this video, I think there's so many different ways to take this. So I'll kind of set the stage on like what the video was, the study with like, as much detail without you. We'll link the video in the show notes because I did think it was interesting if you want to go and actually watch it. But I think that it goes into like this conversation about just exercise science in general, because I think that like a lot of the conversation I think we're going to have here is people that have actually coached athletes, owned gyms, like seen this stuff happen, is that there's always like what you see in a study in a vacuum, and then like what is realistic, what makes sense in terms of application. Like I think a big part of this is just like you're kind of limited to how you can program for a for-profit gym and create something that people don't feel is like, we've had this debate till the end of time with the programming that we offer on the NCFit side of the house. It's like doing strength only or single modality only days are just, they're boring. They're not seen as like an exciting class. So regardless of what the video pointed out of like what ideal training is, I think it's always interesting and I'm really curious to hear your guys' perspectives on like, okay, that's fine. I see that like you can get more ideal results doing this, but what's realistic and what's actually going to get people coming back to the gym, which at the end of the day is at the crux of them getting results. But just to quickly set the stage on like what WOD Science did, which I thought was really interesting. First of all, I thought it was interesting that the subjects of the test were actual subscribers to their YouTube channel, which were in general, like very experienced, trained CrossFit athletes. Because one of the biggest problems with exercise science is almost any study out there that's done is done with untrained populations, which is going to give you one type of result versus if you're actually training what I would assume is a lot of the people listening to this podcast too, which is doesn't mean that you're like the fittest person on earth, but it means that you've been like doing this stuff for like 5, 6, 7 years. And that's going to change what you should be or how you should be approaching your training than if you're some subject at a, collegiate exercise science program where you're going to be largely untrained. Like those two things are like apples and oranges. And I think that that's what made this video interesting. But essentially what he did is he asked subscribers to his channel to volunteer for this test. They were going to give them 8 weeks of custom programming. I also think it was really interesting, and maybe Liz can pick this up, the tests that they use before and after to see if they actually improved. So they took what was essentially a cohort of over 200 people, and it ended up being like 40 people in each group that ended up doing the pre-testing, the full 8 weeks of training, and the post-testing. So that was their subject group, and just 40 and 40.
One of the tests was max burpees in 7 minutes.
One of the tests was max burpees in 7 minutes.
No big deal.
One of the it wasn't the train hard burpee test, but yeah, burpees for 7 minutes was one of the tests. So
did they have any controls on the participants? So what were the age ranges? Did they have Different
They
gender.
didn't.
What were the parameters of the study?
So
Did they lay that out?
he breaks down the results by male and female. So there was a very similar amount of men in both groups and then women in both groups, and he kind of presents the results separately, even though both of the results were pretty much the same. They didn't control like, hey, you have to be within this age or this age, but just given who subscribed to the channel, they all ended up being a little older. Like I think it was like 30s, like in their 30s, 5 to 7 years of CrossFit experience. Was generally who like kind of made up this cohort. And given the fact that they're subscribers to a channel like this, like they're people that take their training pretty seriously. So while no, it wasn't like, hey, this is exactly the type of person we're looking for, I think a lot of was self-selection. So these are the tests that they used before and after to see like, did they progress in their fitness? So they had a 7-minute AMRAP burpees directly into a 1,000 meter row.
Which was interesting, Gabe, because the row didn't adjust for either of the group. I found that to be pretty.
Yeah, the row didn't improve much. CrossFit Total to test absolute strength. So for anyone that doesn't know, CrossFit Total is in 20 minutes. You can build to a 1 rep max in the back squat, shoulder press, and deadlift. They had a 1 rep max clean and jerk, one that they called the powerhouse test, which is like pretty traditional couplet CrossFit 21-15-9. Deadlift and calories on the bike, and it's like a moderate weight deadlifts, 90 kilos. So I think that's the 225 pound bar or right around there. Open workout 14.4. I've done that workout like 10 times. That's at 14-minute AMRAP. That's 60 calorie row, 50 toes to bar, 40 wall balls, 30 cleans, and 20 muscle ups. So like a pretty standard CrossFit open test. And then this WOD Science functional test, they call it, which is essentially until failure thrusters and burpees, 12 thrusters and 7 burpees, which is a pretty, traditional, like just engine work capacity test. So they tested before and after. And so to get to what they were actually testing, they had half of the group do training that every day was strength plus Metcon. They did 4 training days a week plus 1 zone 2 day. And then the other half split up the days where they were doing just strength or just the Metcons, but they all did exactly the same amount of volume. So the Metcons, they would double up. So since they weren't doing strength plus Metcon every day, during their quote unquote conditioning day, they would do 2 Metcons. And during the strength day, they would do all the strength that would be in 2 days. So they controlled for the amount of volume that they were doing, the amount of, work, the amount of sets, all of that. The only difference was, were you doing in a single session your strength followed by your Metcon, which he argued is what most people are doing for CrossFit training. And again, he does acknowledge this in the video that, the original CrossFit methodology does split and does say that like, hey, there are heavy days and there are just long days. But I think we can all agree that what a lot of the programming that affiliates are running on the commercial level, and he uses that word, are doing strength plus Metcon. And then what he calls this hybrid approach is, again, having specific conditioning days, which are double Metcon days, and specific strength days, so 2 of each, and 1 zone 2 day. And then, spoiler alert, at the end, the results, and it was statistically significant enough to bring up, was that the hybrid group improved significantly better in all the conditioning tests and all the CrossFit tests. In the strength tests, both groups improved, but like very little, and there wasn't a big difference. And there were like a little bit of nuance in like the specific tests, like Jason brought up. No one really improved much in the 1,000 meter row. And then the graph that Liz has pulled up now, the hybrid group also had, because the interesting thing too is those are going to be average improvements. There's obviously people that improved a lot and some people that improved not so much. And the hybrid group had a much larger percentage of people that improved a lot. So essentially, to wrap all this up, the video.
Can you go back to that graphic, Liz, really quickly? I'm sorry. I thought that
the main takeaway of the video was, hey, if you split your sessions, you'll get better results. Which, like, I don't know, it's kind of one of those things that, like, after explaining a lot, it's like, well, duh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to see so much of that, like, reinforced by, I think, a pretty well-structured study. Again, you can poke all types of holes. Any type of study, you can poke all types of holes into this. They were doing it on their own. This was all remote. It wasn't done like in a single gym. They were self-reporting the improvements, the results. Who knows what people had going on during, like, their life at that point, what recovery looked like. Like, none of that stuff was controlled for. So you can poke a million holes in it, but you know, compared to other exercise science that's out there, and I've definitely gone down rabbit holes with a lot of hypertrophy specific type of studies, having 40 people go through an entire protocol that's 8 weeks long, testing and retesting, that's as good as it gets in terms of sample size for these kinds of studies. Unfortunately, just because of like funding and all sorts of reasons, exercise science studies tend to be pretty small. So I think that like for all intents and purposes, it was like a pretty well done study. And yeah,
And
that was the takeaways.
he articulated it really well. That's why I enjoyed the video so much. My major takeaway, training age, I think plays a big factor here.
Huge role, yeah.
Where these people in general, and you alluded to this, had a little bit of a longer training age. So when you're first starting off, I think the conventional CrossFit model of strength and then conditioning works really well because it gets people. And if you look at the results, like they got a little bit better in hybrid, but it's not like exponentially. Now, granted, it was only over 8 weeks, but I think that if your training age is less, it's clear to me, in my opinion, that the exposure to like this conventional model of strength and conditioning is the way to go. That's my opinion because it requires less time, you get more bang for the buck, and I think that's why you see a lot of success. Now, as you get older and your training ages increase, you know, it's no doubt that if you have structured sessions separate times a day, you're going to have more attention and focus on those, and you're probably going to get a little bit more gains. Like I could wrap my head around that. But then you have to look at lifestyle. You have to look at the nuance of like, dude, now you have to go to the gym twice. How often are you going to do that? Yeah, you might be able to do that for 8 weeks, but can you continue that? I thought, you know, one of the big things that he wrote, and I agree with this, is that some specific items that could be improved are separate body parts within one session, use RPE to modulate intensity on the Metcon and have a focus point for each session. That was a big takeaway for me, where if you look at like our TH Daily program on the Train Hard app, I think we do a really good job of structuring the days. And I think that we're putting out the best program consistent with what he found. But I think from a gym owner perspective, like I'm coaching tonight, what I'm going to focus on is even being more deliberate on like, what is the main meat and potatoes, right? What's the RPE we're looking for? And I think that could be the way to get the best bang for the buck is basically what he's alluding to here. If you're doing both, giving a more central focus instead of like trying to go mediocre at both.
I think another interesting thing about all of this is like taking a step back and like also just being like, hey, that was really interesting, but how much does it matter?
Yeah, what does it matter?
You know,
what does this matter? That's my question the whole time you guys are talking about this. What does this matter? If your training priority or your training goals or your training preference is like, if you look at those two graphs next to each other, they're the same graph. That's why I asked her to pull it back up. You're looking at something, there's some statistical differences. I get it. It said 50%, 63%, but like if you're talking about 60-40, that's still a coin flip in a lot of ways. Like I don't think that that's humongous, a big enough difference for me to be shocked by this to say, oh, I'm going to change the way that I train to get like more gains by being in a more segmented program versus like a more CrossFit style program. I think ultimately with like what matters the most is like, what's the style of training that you're going to stick to? Like what gets you into the gym consistently to train at a level of intensity that is in alignment with your goals? Because this study, like, yeah, there were some things that it looked like they were different for sure between the two groups. There's a lot of wrinkles with studies that make things a little bit tough to understand data, especially when the data is like pretty similar at the end of the study. Like what were the controls for the group? What were their instructions in training? Like how did they train at a level of intensity that was similar between the two? What were they told about the intention of each session? Like all those things I think in studies like this really matter. And then also like you have things outside of the gym. Like what were the habits of these people outside of the gym based on the groups? Were those controls the same? Like were they told to sleep the same amount? Did they on the same nutrition? And all those kinds of things matter when you're talking about an outcome of strength, conditioning, fitness, nutrition. And a lot of times, you know, Gabe, you articulated it really well at the beginning. These studies are tough to get data out of because one, the demographic is usually pretty sus. 2, it's usually pretty small. 3, it's usually pretty short. And when they do get people into these kinds of studies that have like healthy habits, then you have healthy user bias that comes into the equation sometimes as well, where you're like, well, all these people did this thing, but also their sleep improved. But then you go, okay, were they also really strict with their nutrition across these like 8 weeks or whatever? So did their sleep improve because of that as well? It's just interesting to think about the data and like kind of understand like what you asked a great question. What does it all mean? What does it all mean for us here with this kind of minor statistical difference between the two?
Yeah, and I for me, like I find this stuff interesting because these are the type of YouTube videos that I'll watch in my free time, just to like watch on my free time. Like I like the breakdown. I like learning about stuff like mTOR and AMPK, which we can talk about, and like the interference effect. I also am someone that's like genuinely interested in like getting stronger and putting on muscle, maintaining muscle, but also training for something like a half Ironman. And so for me specifically, like these things and like how they impact each other and how I can structure my training week and how I can, put
For
out
sure.
a flex program that, can really maximize effects, whether people like stick to it or not is super interesting. But I do think that for like the average person, because I completely agree with you, man. Last time we recorded and this went out on social media, and I love the quote that you had that like the most I don't want to get the wording wrong, but the most like underestimated but most important part of your training is like, do you enjoy it?
Are you
Like, do you go
enjoying
in
it?
there and are you excited to do it like day in, day out, week in, week out? And I think that that's 100% very, very important. And I think that a lot of people end up fizzling out or getting frustrated because they're not getting the result that they want to get. So I think that there's a little bit of balance there where they're like the takeaway for I would say the listener here and what we're talking about and what this, study kind of reinforced that we all kind of like knew is if you're trying to chase two chickens, you're going to catch none. Like, I think that like, if you're someone that's like, hey, I really want to train for a marathon, but also like my body composition isn't where it wants to be. Like, you just need to understand that those things have like differing goals that if you go all in on one, it's just going to make the other one a little harder to accomplish.
Yeah,
And
you can get after both, but the results for both are going to be minimized versus getting after
exactly.
one with complete intention.
Yes.
You run a
Yes.
faster marathon if you're not really caring about your
Yes.
body composition. You get
Yes.
better composition of your body if you're not really worried about how fast your marathon time is. For sure. We agree on
Exactly.
this to the end.
And I think that that's just an important thing to highlight for people, because I do think that as much as I love the fact that like the Nick Bears of the world have made this like hybrid athlete something cool and aspirational, and the fact that like you don't anymore need to think that like, well, the only way that I can get good at endurance is if I'm like skinny, or the only way that if I can get really big is if I never run.
Love it.
I do think that on the other side of that, I want to make sure that like guys out there have realistic expectations of what's actually you can accomplish in how much time. Like, you have to realize that the Nick Bears out there have spent years and years as bodybuilders putting on muscle, and then they got into running, and now he has a body composition that I know a lot of guys like strive for. But you're not going to buy an 8-week hybrid program and look like that. Like, if you want to look like that, because of everything that we talked about, I think you're better off like really doubling down on like putting muscle on your frame, really doubling down on hypertrophy training and stuff. And again, back to what you were saying before, if that's not the training you enjoy, don't force it. But if you are trying to get to this goal, I think that because of everything we're talking about, you're better off picking like, which is my top priority, and doubling down on that in seasons, periodizing your training. I just think that if you're really interested on like, how do I get from point A to point B as quick as possible, there are some takeaways here that I think you should at least consider. And if you can still enjoy that type of training by saying, hey, for the next 8 weeks, I'm going to try and really, really double down on putting on muscle. And then I'm not going to stop doing that, but I'm going to put it in the back burner while I train for a marathon or whatever. I think it's just a smarter way to go about it than to like, I want to accomplish everything right now.
Well, unless
You're
that's
gonna
what
get
you want to
frustrated.
do, right? Like, I mean, I'd make the argument that, like, for me, I love blending both because it's time efficient and it's where I want in my goals, right? With like capable jujitsu, like that's why I like the program TH Daily. But like, for example, Flex is a great example of, well, you also get in some conditioning as well. But I think that's my takeaway too, though, Gabe, is like the reason why I like this study. One is like I was interested in what the guy had to say and the way he put it together, but I also found it to be like, makes sense. If you separate out the sessions, got it. But if you have the sessions together, it's not like those people didn't see results. They still saw results,
Right.
just slightly different than the group that separated. So then there becomes like this, like, you know, is the juice worth the squeeze type of thing where you're allocating more time, you're separating, you know. I'd make the argument that I think getting both done in the same session for me and my lifestyle makes sense.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, a big takeaway is that like both groups did 4 training sessions per week and saw results in 8 weeks. Like,
There you go. There you
doesn't
go.
matter how you
Right.
split it. If you're going into the gym and training hard 4 days a week and you do that consistently for 8 weeks, which is 2 months, it's like a drop in the bucket. It's like literally no time. You're gonna improve in all areas. Sure,
Yeah.
conditioning increased a little bit more than strength, but like, and the caveat to and like the cherry on top to all this is this was an experienced group of people. This weren't like newbies that like, of course you're gonna like just walk into the gym and look at a squat rack for 8 weeks and you'll get stronger. These were people that have been training for 5 to 7 years. So yeah, to your point, like that's a takeaway too.
Maybe
It's like
that's the
train
biggest
consistently
takeaway,
for
actually.
8 weeks and
But
you'll
maybe
get
that's
fitter.
the biggest takeaway here is that they had someone hold them accountable for 8 weeks of training 4 times a week, and all of them saw
Everything
results.
improved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, imagine
And the
that.
improvements were marginal between the two. It's not like
Yeah,
these
yeah,
guys who did the hybrid approach went out and now they're like back squatting 500
No,
and running
no.
5-minute miles. I'm not saying that was like, I'm not saying that this was useless at all. This is a cool thing to certainly look at. I saw these results posted and I saw people commenting on them. And I think I saw Hiller post about like, you know, the hybrid thing being better than CrossFit. Somebody in that space did. But dude, I've been saying this for a long time. The specificity of your training needs to directly correlate to the specificity of your goal. Like if you have a super specific goal, your training better be super specific to achieve it. And the narrower your funnel is, or the higher that you want to get on whatever totem pole that is, the less margin for error you have. So if you're a kid who is in, you know, high school basketball and you want to go to the NBA and you have the talent, the funds and the resources and the access, whatever, your training better be pretty damn focused on getting to the NBA. The stuff that you have outside of that doesn't much matter if that's your ultimate goal, because the pool of talent that's trying to get into that club is massive, and you need to be very, very damn good.
Yeah. If you're trying to get to the NBA, you don't need to be swimming 1,000 meters a day. Right.
So
Like,
the same thing with fitness. Like if you
Right.
want to have 7% body fat, which is a really low percentage of body fat. If you're a guy, you want to look diced up, you want to get on stage for a contest, you want to win that contest, you better put a lot of time and energy into making your habits, your routines, your workouts, your practices, all that stuff geared towards that goal.
Yeah.
I think that's very, very important to understand about training. And if you have a very unspecific goal, if you want to look good with your shirt off, if you want to be generally capable, if you want to feel good, but you're like, I'm not really wrapped around the axle about running a 6-minute mile. I just want to be able to run a mile kind of quick. Training programs that mix and match and give you exposure across a broad time and modal domain, where have we heard that before? Not a bad option for you. Not a bad option.
Dude, I got to tell you guys, so we've had the Gilroy wrestling team on a flex program for, I want to say 7 weeks, 6 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. Dude, Daniel Cormier's son, okay, he was benching 95 pounds. 95 pounds for a 1 rep. The other day, yesterday, he hit 145 for a tempo set of 5. So, dude, isn't that crazy? Over 6 weeks. I mean, obviously he's in phenomenal growth mode right now, right? He's like at that age. But isn't that crazy to think about? You put on 50 pounds on the barbell and you added 4 more reps and you added a tempo. Blew my mind.
That's not that crazy to me.
If you, I
That's
don't know
not
if
that
you
crazy to
mentioned
me.
it. I don't know if you mentioned it, but how old are they?
14, 15,
that's
14.
a natural TRT, baby.
No,
Let's
it's
go.
that natural age.
It's exposure.
me-
These
give me
kids are
those years
strong,
back.
bro. These kids are some of the best wrestlers in the country. It's exposure. It's understanding how to hold that weight, understanding how to align your muscular
No
and
way,
skeletal
it's
system.
flex. It's the
It's
program.
flex for sure. It's the program. It's exposure. it's muscle damage. It's that age. It's they're eating like animals. They're training like animals. Of course, like, dude, it wouldn't
They
have surprised me
recover.
if his bench press went up to 185, 205. Like, it wouldn't have surprised me at all.
guys
It
take a
wouldn't
10
surprise me at all.
They take a 10-minute nap and they're recovered and ready to hit it again.
Bro, it's crazy. That
need,
age
like,
for those
3
kids
days.
at their peak.
I need 72 hours.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
it's really
It's awesome.
When I
No,
heard that-
seriously, that's awesome.
It's amazing.
when I heard that. Well, because dude, you're talking about a 50-pound increase, plus you're adding a tempo and more reps. Like that shows you're having control. You're having it's I don't know. It made me really, really happy to hear that result.
The tissue, I would be really interested in the tissue differences. That's what I would want to understand. It's not shocking to me that because of exposure over the course of the past 6 weeks that these kids have
Just learning it.
gained.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what has happened to the tissue? That would be really interesting to me to understand. Like, even from a visual standpoint, what do these kids look like? That would be cool. I don't.
Well,
Listen, not
to
trying to see,
add-
not trying to see, not trying to see kids here.
Let me back up.
Let me back that up a little bit.
Uh,
What do these
you know-
muscular kids look like?
Edit that out.
But Gate or MDV, I think to add validity to what you're saying, when the first time I had these guys using dumbbells to bench, right, they're just so awkward in the position. Obviously, they develop, exposure to it. Yeah, it would be interesting to look at from an actual muscle density, what it would look like. But
It's similar to the burpee test, right? When you take an athlete who has a level of conditioning who's just not good at the burpee, they can improve that score exponentially in 3 exposures to that workout. 3 exposures, right? They learn how to cycle, they learn how to breathe, and then all of a sudden it clicks and they're like, wow, I went from 7 rounds to 20 rounds in 3 tries. That's a little extreme, but I don't think that that's not too shocking. I think somebody who had a strong aerobic base in that kind of test could do that.
yeah,
Just gets overwhelmed by the movement.
yeah.
One thought that I had, MDV, while you were saying, because I mean, obviously we agree on the fact that like the more specific your goal is, the more specific your training plan has to be. Of course, like if you're trying to break a 3-hour marathon, if you're trying to break a 5-hour half Ironman like that, I like the endurance stuff because it literally becomes like a backward math problem. Like you just need to know, like you need to be able to hold this many watts, like you need this type of, pacing on the run, so on and so forth. You build towards those, you progress towards those. I do think that like when we talk about like if you just want to look a little bit better, specifically that, talking about the aesthetics, I do think that for a lot of people that either come to us or go look for any training program or nutrition program, I do think that it's a little bit more specific than we're making it out to be here for someone that's like at 25% body fat that doesn't necessarily want to get to 7, but wants to get to 15. And I sent Liz a chart, maybe she can pull it up, of kind of like what that looks like for anyone that's watching on YouTube. I think that like a lot of guys might be sitting around, like a lot of guys that like, come to us or kind of like have been training for a while and want to see a change. Maybe you're like at what, 25 to 30? I mean, maybe 35 for some people, but like, what's the ideal? Because it's not 7%. I think that a lot of dudes would be super stoked to be somewhere between like 15 to 20.
I looked it up the other day.
Like, what do you think guys would be super stoked with?
The ideal, I confirmed this with Chat GPT.
Oh,
The
So it has to be right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It must be right. The robot told me it was right. It's between like 11 and 13%, which was like the ideal, most aesthetically pleasing body fat percentage for men. That's what it told me. That's what.
But I mean,
Which makes sense.
but what do you guys? I mean, I think that the average guy looking at this chart, which I don't necessarily disagree with any of these pictures here. I think that if they got to
25 plus.
between 15 to 20, they'd be stoked. They'd be like, that is fucking awesome. And I get that there's like an ideal that like I'm even shooting for that's like where you are, right? Like the 10 to 11 to 12, like what you were saying. And I guess the point that I was trying to make is that if you are in the 30 to 25% body fat and you're trying to get to that between 15 to 20, and you're saying that you want to do this in as short time as possible because everyone does, I think that that's a very specific goal. That is incredibly specific. And
That's the
because
key.
it's a very specific goal, let's have a very specific approach to it, which
That's the key.
includes a specific nutrition approach, having a very specific training that really helps you like progressive overload and make sure you're maintaining muscle while you're burning fat. That would be kind of like my maybe counter argument to the whole like, hey, if you're just trying to look better, that's not a specific goal and you can kind of like, be not specific with your training. If I take at face value the fact that a guy comes up to me and is like, hey, I look like that guy and I want to look like this guy, and I ideally don't want to have to wait 6 months to a year to make it happen, it's pretty specific. And we got to get to work and have a very specific plan to get there, would be my argument.
Yeah, I think so. The thing that compelled me to be on your side of the aisle here is you made a point that changes everything. It's the quickest way to get to that state. That's very specific. I want to go from where I am right now as quickly as possible to the coffee shop down the block. Well, then you're not going to take the route around the house over there that's got the cool artwork behind it. And you're going to enjoy. Yeah, you're not going to sniff the flowers. You're just going to walk down the block to the coffee shop and go get your cup of coffee. I think that's a perfectly valid way to look at it. That's a specific goal. For me, and the reason why I like a program like NT4BS, which is no time for BS, it's not going to be day 1 to day 45 like the most dialed in thing that's going to get you the most dialed in physique that's going to get you on stage to compete. It's not. But it's a low stress, very high exposure program to a lot of really great movements in an amount of repetitions that I think will elicit a really great stimulus with loading that I think is appropriate to build the type of physique that I want to build, which is lean and muscular. And if you make the adjustments along with your nutrition across 45 days, I think you're going to see great results. Can you get to... What's up?
No, I was just going to... Never mind. I'll let you finish your thought because I have like a kind of a different perspective for a second.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if you wanted to get to a certain percentage of body fat as fast as possible, a realistic percentage of body fat as fast as possible, training would be a little bit different if that was the goal. That would be my take on it.
Well, and Gabe, like something I'd say is like, you know, you got to be careful also. I cannot tell you how many times someone has came in and had a very specific goal in terms of aesthetics and they burn out. So that would be something I'd also pay attention to is like, if you're trying to have a very specific goal of getting to a very specific body fat, you know, having a realistic time horizon on that, I think is really important. Just like, because I think when it comes to physique, people have like an unrealistic expectation of how fast that'll happen versus like, oh, I want to get to a sub 3-minute marathon. I feel like they could see like, kind of like it'll have to take time. But I think when it comes to physique, they'll want to have it quicker and quicker and quicker. And the problem with that is that if you go too hard, too fast, you just burn out and then you're done. I mean, I'm sure that relates to other goals as well, right? So there's that fine balance of finding a program and a nutrition protocol that not only allows you to get to where you want to be as fast as possible, but also allows you to actually retain that, you know, not for a week, a month, a year.
But I wouldn't say that like if that person came in and said, hey, Gabe, this is my goal, I'm not saying a specific plan is giving them 6 days a week and like perfect macros to hit and you have to sleep and cut out booze and whatever. You still need to figure out like, okay, what is the level of commitment you're ready to do? But I'm just saying that like the actual goal is pretty specific. So the training should be pretty specific to that goal. That could mean 3 days a week of training. That could mean, hey, you're just focusing on having plenty of protein for breakfast and hitting your water goal. That's what that could mean. But it's still just, I think, a very specific goal.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Gabe, I think like you're a great test case for this in a lot of ways because you've really followed a very specific regimen over the past couple of years with your training, not only with the Flex program to get to a certain aesthetic that you look great, but you've also had a bunch of goals along the way where you've dove into really specific modalities of training to achieve certain goals, very different from what you were doing with your Flex program, right? And maybe if you were coaching somebody through Flex, maybe you wouldn't recommend, hey, all this additional conditioning on the side because it might take away from that person's ability to hit the Flex session as hard. That's a little bit of a side note. But if I put you through as much time of workouts that I wrote for you that were, you know, mixed a little bit more, maybe had a little bit more exposure, I think you still would see gain. I think you would still put on muscle. I think the habits outside of the gym would have been dialed the same way. If all that stuff was going the same direction, I don't think you would look as physique bodybuilding peak that you look pretty close to getting to a point where you're like your physique is peaked, which is cool. I don't think that would be the same aesthetic. I think you'd be lean, strong, you'd look good, you'd be proud of what you looked at in the mirror. But I think that maybe you'd have a little less size, maybe like some of the way that you were built would be less bodybuilding looking. But that would be interesting.
I agree. And it just comes down to this, and I forget who I saw that posted this, but he put it very eloquently in that most people following any training methodology for, I think he said like 5+ years, but I think you can argue about like the timeline and whatever, but I think the overall idea we would all agree with. Most people following any training program, like I could follow TH Daily, NT for BS, or Flex. You do that for 5 years with like 80% consistency, and you do the nutrition and the recovery. And at the end of those 5 years, you're going to be at maybe like 90, 91, and 92% to your like potential peak, right? Like it's going to be, the difference is going to be so tiny and on the margins, but it's all about consistency and just having a long enough time horizon, and all the little differences of like, you can get to as in the weeds as a bro split versus a full body split versus like cable machines versus like dumbbells versus like compound lifts versus whatever, versus the 3 programs that the 3 of us kind of like, are the head, avatars for on the app. Long enough time horizon, everything kind of converges to like the same point. And I think that's another kind of like taking it round about to like where we started the podcast. Like at the end of the day, just train consistently and put a strong effort in, and like focus on like the basic principles of like nutrition, get enough sleep, don't, drink so much that it's counterproductive to your goals. And like, we're all going to end up meeting in the same place, which also, but this is a really, really important caveat. We're all going to meet at the same place that is like as close to our potential ceiling as possible, because everyone has different potential ceilings. Some people are just going to look different. And I think that that's an important caveat too, because playing the comparison game.
Genetics play a big role.
100%.
I was 219 on a scale yesterday. Some guy asked me like, how do I get that? It's like,
some guys are just built different.
Well,
period.
I told him, I was like,
look at the 3 of us here.
Yeah, I'll never be 200 pounds in my life. I'll never be 200 pounds in my life.
I mean, you could be 200 pounds, but it's not going to look like Jason Khalipa 200 pounds.
Yeah, it's going to look like Gabe Yanez, CrossFit, CrossFit Fluffy 200 pounds, bro. You might have been 2 bills in that photo, bro.
No.
Oh, he was close.
No. I never got to 200.
I told Ash
185.
That was like close to 190. Yeah, close to 190.
Pretty close.
I might try and get to like 250 just for the hell of it. I was thinking about it the other day. Just for the sake. Caden's like, hey, you should do you should go back and
Dude,
you and Rich.
You wouldn't feel good at 250.
No.
You would feel terrible.
No, Caden wanted me to go compete at the CrossFit Games again. That's what he was talking to me about yesterday. I said, I don't know, bro. But he's like,
dude, Caden saw the new marketing ad and was like, Dad, you got to go back.
Well, he goes,
the Caden effect, bro.
He's like, hey, if you compete in the games right now, like, how would you do? I was like, I'd take last. He's like, no, like seriously. I was like, I would take last. Like, dude, those guys are super legit. He's like, well, what if you trained? I was like, I was like, dude, I'm
second to last.
Yeah, I was like second to last.
One of
hot take. Competition Khalipa would not take last. Hot take. I do not think you would finish last in the field. I don't think you would win. I don't think you would win, but I think some weird switch would flip in your head, and like Back in Black would play out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden slobber is going on, like 1 rep max back squat. He's got 700 pounds on the bar. We're going for it.
3 pairs of knee sleeves and 3 dogs.
Yeah, bro. You'd be back in the USA versus Europe arena, bro, when you were doing that was a crazy event. That was probably one of the best events of all time.
Oh, for sure. But Gabe, back to your point about 250, I was half joking with Ashley. I mean, I haven't seen under 200 pounds on the scale since before high school, right? So I'm kind of intrigued by that goal. I've gotten really close. I've hit 201 or 200. I've never seen 199 or the opposite goal. But I think you're probably right. I'd feel really heavy at 250, and it would probably hurt my knees and my joints.
You would feel a lot better getting below 200. I don't think you would feel, I don't think that's where your body wants to be either. I think that you'd be pretty depleted at that state and not feel great either, but you would feel significantly better than going up to 250. 250, I don't think would be fun for you. I think, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, 219, yeah. Anyways.
You'd be lean below 200, bro.
But you guys brought up the CrossFit Games, so this is a good segue because I do want to get to this. F the quick fix. I'm not going to say the word because we try and keep it PG on here, but CrossFit yesterday, it was funny. I was literally on a marketing meeting with Liz when I got the email from CrossFit, and I was like, immediately, like, I opened it, like, talk about clickbait. I was like, what? Like, this isn't language they've used. Like, this isn't the vibe that they've had. So I was like, I wonder what this is. And I clicked on the link because I was like, what are they trying to make me do here? And it sent me to a Google Drive link, which was really weird, to download the images and the videos, because the whole call to action, the email that they sent everyone, was to share that campaign. And it's created a lot of buzz, man. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of people share it. It seems pretty divided, the response. Like, I was looking at a couple comments really quick on the post on the actual CrossFit site about Instagram about it. And essentially you have a lot of people really like getting the nostalgia of like, this is the pukey days. This is going back to like the, you know, we've talked about this before, like your workout is my warm up, like kind of like the real gritty counterculture kind of vibes of it. Liz is scrolling through the comments right now, but then there were some comments of like, hey, if my gym posts this, like, I'm out. Like, you know, this is too much.
I
this
haven't
is too
seen
harsh.
this.
This is too whatever. So
Liz, can you click over real quick? Why this? Why now? The system is selling us lies. Okay.
big food. Okay.
We're here to hit them with unsexy truth. CrossFit has always been the cure to world's most vexing problem. Okay. This is a carousel that we're reading. For anyone, but not for everyone. Okay. CrossFit is a cure campaign. Okay. So, all right. To our affiliate owners. Okay. So this, I felt like they should have started with this, right? Why this? Why now? Because that's not the first post they did on the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, that first,
Anyway, I'm curious.
if
your
you
guys'
start with the
takes.
explanation, you don't get as many eyebrow raises, right? You can't start there. This was meant to stir the pot for sure. They didn't do this because they wanted to not stir the pot. They did this because they had a decent reception from the games. I mean, for all intents and purposes, the games were a win for CrossFit this year. Whether or not the viewership numbers were as high as they've been in the past, the events, the competition, I heard the vibe there was really good. I talked to a number of people who were there who said it was good. I think they came out of that with some positive momentum. And I actually don't hate this take. I don't hate this take. I think that it's
I don't
think
either.
that it's a very strong move for them, honestly. And I think that maybe it's 5 or 7 years too late. But I think it's a super strong move.
Yeah. So, by the way, I heard the same thing about the games. Attendance was down, but energy was strong. It was a good rebuilding year, which
For sure.
awesome. Congratulations to CrossFit. Like, we want to see that happen, right? We want to see the games build. I think the campaign is not bad, right? I think it's cool they have a campaign they're going out with. My question is, like, is the timing right? And maybe the timing's never perfect, right? But I mean, it's currently being sold. It doesn't matter, because timing would never be perfect, right? Because they could have done this 3 months from now. If it's a good campaign, it's a good campaign.
Here's the deal. I think we've all thought about CrossFit for a long time. We've been in the scene for a long time. CrossFit obviously has a brand reputation out there, whether you like it or not. If you go up to somebody on the street and you say, hey, what do you think about CrossFit? The odds are, one, they've heard of it, which is huge. That is huge, to have brand recognition among the general public for anything. I think that that's something that people forget. That even if you mention the word CrossFit in most circles to people who have experienced fitness, they're going to say yes. And even some people who maybe are just tuned into like pop culture environment and stuff like this, they're going to say, yes, I've heard of it.
Right.
The second thing after that, this is just my gut. Most people will tell you that it's dangerous. Most people will tell you that it's not for them.
Or too hard.
Too intense.
Yeah.
But there is a strong segment of the population that wants to lean into that. There's a strong segment of the population wants to lean into it. And there's obviously people who are still involved in the CrossFit organization who are diehards, who have been ride or die throughout. And I think they love this. And I think that if you're going to try to spit shine the CrossFit brand out there and wipe it down with Windex and make it very clean and PG and, you know, now we're woke, I think that that's a terrible move. I think that that's so anti your core base of person who really made this thing special. And now what they're doing, it seems, is that they're trying to go back and reignite that base and then also attract all the people in hyper competitive athletes, people who don't want any, frills, people who want to get results, people who want no quick fixes, they want lifetime solutions to fitness. I think it's a really smart move.
I think
it's the only move. It's the only move.
That's the thing. It is the only move, man. Dude, good marketing, and I've talked about this forever. Like, good marketing is going to push a lot of people away. Like, that's just, and CrossFit has proven that 100%. Like, as soon as you started doing something that was inclusive, what did you do? You like put a wet towel on the fire that was your core, but you also weren't compelling enough to bring any new people in, because you were kind of about nothing. You were just kind of like vanilla, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, include, like, at least now. And I do agree with you, MDB. I think it hopefully this isn't the case. I think we've all made it very clear that we're fans of CrossFit. We want to see it do well. I hope this thing is like the beginning of like a resurgence of it doing really, really well. I genuinely do hope that. But I do think it's a little too late. But yeah, I mean, it's the only move left, man. Like this is getting people fired up that used to be fired up, because it reminds them of the reason that got them into this. They didn't get into this because it was like, yeah, everyone can do it, whatever. It's like, for anybody, but not for everybody. Like, that fires people up. That fires me up. Like, I saw it and I was like, this is cool. This is awesome. And I think that, like, as someone that, is a marketer, like, it's cool to see, because I know that this stuff is never easy. Like, you're taking a chance. Like, this could go one way or the other. And I think the reception has been, these things are always going to be 50-50, but I think the right people are fired up about it. So shout out to Jen Huaka, I think is her name, Chief Marketing Officer for CrossFit, behind the campaign. A lot of respect. Tip the hat.
It's a good move for them. Because when CrossFit first started, obviously it was like the anti everything, right? And
for sure,
I wouldn't necessarily say that the reason why you saw CrossFit kind of like, go down a little bit is because they got too, I don't know if they necessarily got too soft in their marketing necessarily. I think that they didn't adopt with the times. Like, I don't know exactly why, right? There was a lot of factors.
Yeah, but did they have to? Like, why do you have to take a brand that's cool and doing something cool and make it uncool? Or try to make it so safe that everybody can do it? I understand brands got to make money, and you have deliverables and all this kind of stuff, and how do you make money through seminars and affiliations and all the rest. You could probably make a strong argument that if CrossFit had stuck to their guns about forging elite fitness nonstop over the past X number of years it's been around, and not tried to change to a more approachable, safer, more like living rooms, cuddling with your family type of brand, that they could have arguably been more successful, or gone a different path, right?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about this on the podcast, but I know it came up on one of our team calls. But the whole American Eagle thing is another just perfect. Like, you have to lean into this stuff. You have to lean in. Like, the worst thing you can do, talking about the Sydney Sweeney stuff, whether you agree, disagree, whatever or not, we don't have to get into that. But I think we can all sit here and see how American Eagle has done after all that. And what is the best thing that they did to all the backlash is not apologize, double down, and just like roll with the punches.
I don't even get what the backlash would have been. I really just didn't understand the campaign. Like, I must be just way. Hey, well, Sydney Sweeney has great jeans. It's like, okay, dude, she's wearing jeans. She's a good-looking girl. Like, okay, just leave it at that. Like, it's fine. Like, let's move on.
That's the whole point. It's tough to understand. But
they're playing on the word genes, obviously, with genetics. And then people got in and read eugenics, and people got in and started to think about, well, she's blonde and has a certain look, and does this relate to a certain type of person that, back in the mid 1930s, that they were trying to create like, it went so far from what probably what the campaign people were thinking about. They were definitely thinking about, hey, let's highlight the fact that Sydney Sweeney is stunningly beautiful and she's got great genetics. That's inarguable. But I don't think that they were trying to relate it to like fascism in any way, shape, or form.
No.
And the response from the general public was, it just is so interesting to me, like how people interpret these things and then go to say like, this is so objectionable that I have to make it a big deal. And what that ended up doing, it's called the Barbara Streisand effect, I believe, is it made it even bigger. It made the ad even bigger, even more powerful, because the take on that was so nonsensical, so out of this world, left field crazy, that anybody like me, who I probably wouldn't have paid attention to this ad, I never even probably would have saw it if the controversy didn't come up. And then when I saw it, I'm like, wow, I kind of want to support American Eagle now, especially after the apology, the non-apology,
The non-apology.
But
the
there wasn't-
non-apology
The
apology.
double down.
I mean, in that case, like, I don't know what they would apologize for, because like there was no intent. Like, I think people are leaving out a lot of that type of thing, but I do think it's gotten better. It's gotten better, at least from my experience in over the last couple of years.
Shout
For
out
sure.
to American
For
Eagle
sure it's gotten
for
better.
making a crazy good move there. Because the easy thing to do would have been to kowtow and be like, we're sorry.
Yeah.
You know,
Remember the
blah, blah,
Peloton
blah.
one? Remember the one where like the girl was like, the guy bought his wife like a Peloton,
Yeah.
and then like then it was like added a bunch of backlash. And the next day, what's his name, like hired the girl to like do a tequila vodka ad. I'm totally butchering this, but do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes, it was the whole thing was the ad was the husband getting the wife a Peloton, which was clearly misogynistic, and but I don't remember what happened after that.
No, and then some famous actor guy hired the same girl to do like a vodka ad like in the next day. It was just like really good timing, you know? Yeah. Anyways, back to the CrossFit thing. I'm excited that they at least have a brand vision, that they have a campaign they're rolling out with. I think that's really exciting. That's really cool. You know, timing wise, I guess it would, in retrospect, originally I thought timing wasn't great, but there's never like a perfect timing for something like this. They don't know if they're going to sell in a month, 2 months, or 5 months. So they might as well try and build as much as they can and grow and be prepared for when that sale does occur.
One thing that I caught and definitely noticed, and I'm sure other people did, I haven't seen any comments about it, was part of the video mentioned that the whole the quick fix, they were talking about medications and drugs, clearly talking about Ozempic. And, that's a really, really just interesting part of, them leaning into this. I've personally, and this is probably a topic for a whole other episode because I know we're coming up on the hour, I have largely changed my tune on just kind of like how I view those as a tool specifically. We've had a couple conversations here with people that have been kind of all over on the spectrum of like, I remember we had Julian Pinot who said that Ozempic was going to be the next opioid crisis. So on that side of the spectrum. And then we've had people like recently, why am I blanking on his name? He lives here in Austin. I can literally see he was Gary Vee's trainer.
Jordan
Syed.
Jordan
Syed.
Oh, you're talking about Syed. Yeah, yeah.
So we've had
I think he lives in, it doesn't matter.
he lives here. He lives here in Austin or up in Dallas.
I
But
think he lives in Dallas. Anyways, doesn't matter.
he recently, so this was after he was on the podcast, but I don't know if he recently posted the fact that like he experimented himself with using it for 8 weeks. And he's like the biggest proponent of it, from someone that he was explaining comes from disordered eating. Even though he doesn't have a weight management issue now, he was kind of explaining these benefits of like taming down this like noise, which a lot of people describe as kind of the benefits of this stuff and why it seems to have benefits with other addictions too. So we've had the whole gambit on the podcast. And I just think that like my personal opinion on it has definitely evolved as I've kind of looked into it a little bit more, even talked to some people that have used it and used it with great success. So maybe we can talk about that on a future episode. But I do think that was an interesting like tidbit of this approach with the quick fix, because they're clearly targeting the fact that this is very
Or
much
are you looking, or like just kind of playing devil's advocate for a second, are you looking at it through that lens? Like,
I mean, if you watch the video and they
I
mention like medications now as the quick fix, like what do you think they're talking about? Like we're in the era
I
of
appreciate
Ozempic.
though, Gabe, I appreciate that you could say like, hey, because I remember when that conversation first got brought up, it caused a little bit of I had to have some conversations offline because it caused a little bit of, when you and I had the podcast, it caused a little bit of conversations in my personal life that I had to go discuss. And
What do you mean?
I had some family members that were really frustrated with the way you approached it, and I had to go talk to them about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's my opinion at the time, dude, and it
No,
was
no, and that's
it was 100%. And here's the thing, like, I see the merits of that. I 100% see the merits of it is a slippery slope to make this thing available that gives people an end result without having to establish the habits to get to that end result. Because how does that not end up with them now being dependent on that forever? Like, and here's the thing, like, what hasn't changed is I think there's a responsible way to use something that's just a tool for people that have tried everything else and have like just hit the wall time and time again with their best effort to lose weight and just feel better. But I think that as soon as this thing becomes just like a quick fix, it's trouble. And just given the incentives in our medical system, in our pharmaceutical system, I can't see how it doesn't, at least for many people, go in that direction. Because I don't think we're super responsible about like, hey, if you're going to use this, like make sure we're also building the necessary habits. We're also making sure you're eating enough protein, working out with weight so that you're losing fat and not muscle. Let's come off with a plan so that you can come off of it once you're at the weight that you want to do. If we were doing that with everyone, dude, I'd be all for it. Me and you both know that that's not the case. And I would assume that for the people that maybe took reservation to how I approached it, they're probably doing it the right way too. I'm saying that for a lot of people, this could be trouble and we have to be aware of that. That's it. However, I do think it's a very, very useful tool if done in the right direction. And the reason I brought it up in the context of this whole CrossFit thing is I think that they're shooting themselves in the foot a little bit potentially by purposefully pushing people that have seen success with that away instead of saying, hey, if that helped you get to a weight where now you feel comfortable coming into a CrossFit gym, great. Like, that's awesome. Like, now let's talk about building the habit so maybe you don't need that forever. I think that maybe is a miss, but again,
well, I think
nuanced
that's
conversation.
that's nuance. It softens the message, right?
Sure,
Like,
sure.
softens the message big time. If you were going to say
Sure.
like, oh, here's this asterisk.
Well, you
Maybe
can't-
they're even trying to
you can't
target
include
people
that
who
in a
have gotten
video.
off of Ozempic and said, now I'm right back where
Sure.
I started. You know, I don't know what my exact position on GLP-1s are. I mean, I've thought about it for sure, but just my cursory understanding of these things, they improve insulin sensitivity, so they reduce blood sugar spikes after you eat. And they make your body go from more carb adaptive to fat adaptive faster. I think that's one of the benefits. The other main benefit is that reduces food cravings.
Yeah.
Right? So you're eating, not only are you having a more efficient way that you're processing food, but like you're eating less because you're craving less. The question that I want to ask is like, if you gave somebody the advice to just say, hey, I want you to have more discipline, I want you to eat less food, I want you to try to control those cravings more, here's some outlets and some tools and some resources to do that. We also want to change the quality of your nutrition to improve your insulin sensitivity over time. I mean, you can accomplish the same result without the drug. It's not
for a lot of people, MDV. That's where the argument is, right? It's
so
like they have the argument that someone would make is that they have tried that, they have explored that, they've done that, and there is a mindset, there is a block there, and they need support.
For sure.
Exactly. You know what I mean?
I'm not saying that they don't need support. I'm not saying they don't need support. I'm not saying that it's not a useful tool. But what I'm saying is that there's also ways to accomplish those goals that don't involve medical intervention. There 100% is a way, because you've seen it for decades. You've seen it for decades for people who have lost weight. It might not be as easy. And I'm not saying that this is like an indictment against anybody who uses Ozempic. I know people who use Ozempic and GLP-1s, and it's great for them. That's fantastic. But it's not just a panacea. It's not just an inject yourself with this thing and it cures everything about your physique and your body and all that kind of stuff. There are things to consider in terms of taking hormones. And that's just the truth. So I think that there's arguments on both sides of this thing. I think that if you have tried everything and you're somebody who wants to give it a go, give it a go. It's not my body. You're not hurting me. And just be aware of all the ups and the downs, or the pros and the cons.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you can make the same argument, I guess. Well, testosterone's a little bit different, TRT in particular, but like in clomiphene, like, have you done all these other things? And at some point, those are kind of apples and oranges. But I think that when it comes to GLP-1, like, I think there's an audience of people that this could be the spark they need just to get them to be able to go do the thing. I think that was probably a piece of it too for me that I was maybe a little bit more insensitive to earlier on, only because I can't relate to that, right? And when someone starts to see that momentum build, dude, and they just keep it going, that's pretty exciting. I met a guy the other day who lost like 200 pounds and now he's kept it off. It's been life-changing for him, all the things. But anyways, hey, I know we're up on the hour. Yeah.
And testosterone can be life-changing, and clomiphene could be life-changing.
100%.
Hormone therapies, HRT, TRT, and all those things can be very, very life-changing for people. But they also come with risks and benefits, and you have to be aware of all those things.
For sure.
The problem, and we should have an episode carved out specifically for this, but again, I think the problem just comes to the incentives of the system, because as soon as this stuff is something that creates profit for companies, they're going to want more customers, and more customers means trying to make this a solution for everyone, even for the person that could potentially, see some results, whether it's on the weight loss side by, just literally focusing on habits. Maybe they're not the person, Jay, that has tried everything. Maybe they're just someone that wants a quick fix. And when these companies are looking for more and more customers, because more customers mean more profit, they're going to lower their standard of who it is that this is actually going to be helpful for. And that's where I think we can get into some hot water.
Yeah. I mean, the medical system, we've talked about this, dude. It's so crazy to me. Also, just like how expensive things are. And anyways. All right. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you both. I appreciate everybody for checking out the podcast, for listening to the podcast. Go out there, train hard, utilize our Train Hard app. I believe we have the best programs on the planet. And more importantly, or just as importantly, a community of like-minded group of men who want to level up. And so make sure to check out the podcast show notes for a link to the original YouTube video we were referring to from WOD Science, as well as everything we're talking about in terms of the Train Hard app. Keep getting after it.